All right, everyone, I want to welcome you back to your next training lesson. Guys, up until this point, we have been talking about all the different common inspection types that you will encounter when performing mortgage field inspections. All right, so and today's lesson is really no different, except now we're going to be talking about the vacant property inspection. We've talked about the interview inspection. Basically, that's a letter delivery. Now the interview inspections, these vacant exterior inspections, and the vacant interior inspections are probably going to be the most inspections that you do. All right, so that's the reason why I am going into detail with these inspections. So with this lesson here is very long. So I'm going to have to break this up into five or six sections. All right, because if you ever want to refer back to the lesson, back to the video or whatever, I want to also make it easier for you to do that as well. All right, so I know the last lesson was about an hour long, but this one is probably going to be a little bit longer, being that there's a lot more things that you have to do when it comes to a vacant property. So, and these are all the things that you'll need to know when you are out there performing inspections. Now, I know this is like a lot of information that I am putting on you guys, but I'm telling you, when you learn this information and you begin to do repetitive jobs, and it becomes automatic to you. Okay, it seems like a lot, but it's not a lot. So I just want to give you an overall view of what is of you when you're going out doing these inspections. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this one. This first section, again, we're going to talk about the vacant property inspection, the exterior of it. All right, so let's jump into the slides right now. All right, so with the vacant property, all right, it requires us to basically we have to walk around the entire property. So if we're walking up to the property, if we can, we need to walk the entire perimeter of the property. All right. And as we're doing that, we're going to be looking for any visible damages or the security of the property. Maybe there's some doors open, some windows open. That's what we mean when we talk about security. If there's busted windows and things like that, we're gonna in this lesson we're going to be going into very great detail. But for now, what you need to know is when you get to a property and you know it's vacant, or that you have called it vacant for the first time, you are required to walk around the entire property, okay? And just look for any damages and make sure the property is secured, all right? So, when we talk about vacant properties, a lot of people have different definitions depending on who, the kind of client that you're working for. Maybe it's an insurance client, or whatever the case. But some people have different definitions of the word vacant. All right. So for the purposes of mortgage field inspections, we're going to be going into detail of what we call vacant. Okay. Let me get my words right here. I'm gonna get my words all tumbled up. Anyway, so there are several definitions depending on the source and the purpose of this inspection. They may call it abandoned, unoccupied, a vacant possession, or it could be under renovation. These are all different definitions that people will refer to as a property as being vacant. All right, but for us, we're not provided with choices like that. So for us, a property is either occupied, vacant, or partial vacant. And I know this is the first time you're hearing the term partial vacant, so we're going to be going into detail about that. So for when we arrive at a property is either occupied, vacant, or partial vacant. Okay. So again, for the purposes of mortgage field inspections, a home is considered vacant when no one lives there. Boom, mind blown. Anyway, but I'm gonna tell you reason why I'm saying it like that is because a lot of people will call something vacant when it's really not. So we're gonna go into detail about those kind of situations. All right. So a house, sometimes, a house can be full of furniture. Okay. This is what we're going to consider vacant. Okay. A house could be full of furniture. It can have cars in the driveway or whatever. But it really doesn't prove that a house is occupied. Okay, because let me explain to you why. I have an example here where the homeowner passed away. The house is full of furniture. Okay, that house is actually going to be called vacant because no one is living there. The homeowner passed away. Now let me explain to you the situation that I was in. I actually went into a property. I actually had the keys because, again, as I explained before, we do have keys when we do interior inspections. So, but we're going to talk about the keys later in the interior inspections. But anyway, I went to a house, had the keys, walked in. The home was fully furnished, cars in the garage. I mean, utilities on. I mean, it was like someone lived there. But the water, the electric was on. Water had been off for a while. All right. Nobody lived in the house. The house was actually vacant. I went and I asked a neighbor, and the neighbor verified that the homeowner passed away. All right. So that, it can be kind of tricky. It can really be kind of tricky. So you just want to make sure, if you run into a situation like that, go to a neighbor, find out from a neighbor or something like that, or maybe call your vendor just to see any past results of things like that. But that's usually when you go into a house doing an interior inspection. But sometimes you can see through a window and see furniture. Okay, sometimes you can see through a window and see furniture and stuff. That still does not mean that that property is occupied. All right. Here's another example where the property is actually occupied. Okay, seasonal properties. Okay, where like an example of that would be what they call snowbirds. People who, live up north part of the year and then they come down during the winter months to to a warmer climate like Florida, where it's warmer. So in the wintertime they're up north, and then in the summertime, or in the wintertime they're south, and all the other parts of the year they're back at their regular home. Now that is a seasonal property. That does not mean they may have furniture there and everything like that, but that does not mean that that property is vacant. So before you determine that property to be vacant, before you determine any property to be vacant, you always want to try to consult with a neighbor, just to back up what your assumptions are, because you want to provide as much evidence as possible to call that property vacant. All right, so now remember I told you about the term, we went over the told you about the term partial vacant, we just talked about that just a moment. So sometimes you'll see that term partial vacant. Now that doesn't mean that somebody is moving out of the property, or some of the personal items are still at the property. It does not mean that. Okay, what partial vacant means, it refers to multifamily units like a duplex or a triplex, something like that. All right, so or multifamily units basically. So we're going to use duplex as an example. All right. If one side of the duplex is vacant and the other side is occupied, then that means the property is partial vacant. Okay, that is what you're going to be putting on your report when you report that property. Okay, so when you're going to filling out your form and you're reporting the status of that partially vacant property, some of the things that you may be asked to report on are like which units are vacant. They'll want you to document, does it have common or separate interests? You know how some buildings or some duplexes or triplexes or whatever, they'll have a common entrance and then individual doors beyond that common entrance. All right. So that common entrance is the common entrance. You know, so they want to know if it has common interests or not, or separate. They want you to report if it has common or separate utilities. Some places they share utilities, so they may split a utility bill or whatever kind of bill, electric bill, water bill, could be whatever kind of utility bill. They may split the cost of that. But I haven't seen that happen. Most of the places that I go to or have been to, they have their own separate utilities. All right. So, and then you want to indicate whether the vacant unit is secure or not. Okay. Because when you're dealing with a duplex, more than likely it's the same owner, except one side is vacant and the other side is not, but they want the status on the entire unit. So if it's a duplex, they want the status on both units. Now, if the duplex address that you are inspecting, if that is occupied, then you want to say that it's occupied. However, if it's vacant, then of course you want to say that it's vacant and do your normal inspection, do your normal vacancy inspection. All right. But however, you don't want to really go on the occupied side when you are reporting on your vacant property. On that specific vacant property, just specifically work on that property, the address that you have. If it's unit A, work on unit A only. Don't go over to unit B unless you're maybe knocking at the door to see if that property is vacant. Just don't stay on the vacant property itself. All right, that'll save you a lot of headache from neighbors and things like that. Focus on the vacant unit itself. All right, so those are some of the things that you want to report when you are reporting a partially vacant property. So again, this is something important that you should know. A partially vacant status should only be used if there is more than one unit at the location. Okay, so you know, if it's just we're not talking about townhomes where they are connected together. That is considered a townhome. So that is a separate entity than the unit right next to it. Okay, so that's not considered partial vacant. We're talking about like a home, a duplex. You know, the duplex is a best example that I can provide. We're talking about a home where there are multiple units in one building. Okay. Townhouses are going to be different because they are their individual buildings, even though they are attached, if that made any sense. All right, so we never want to report a single family home as partially vacant if the occupants are in the process of moving or if they have abandoned their personal property. All right, so basically the definition of a vacant property can be summed up like this: people occupy properties, not their things. Okay, not their personal belongings. All right, so that'll do it for this section. We're going to, in the next section, we're going to be talking about your photo requirements. All right. So I will see you guys in the next section.